Oh, yeah. You know what that sound means. It's time for a little IMNSHOW with yours truly, DP Knudten. And hey, it's been a while because I'll be honest with you, I've been out of the country on vacation with my family and doing all sorts of stuff. And kind of, this is a new year or into the new year. It's kind of well into the new year now. But it's time for me to get back on the podcast horse and start doing some episode recordings and also do some IMNSHOW episodes, which you are watching right now. So you know how it rolls. If you've watched IMNSHOW before, whenever I do a podcast record, I bring on a special guest and we talk at each other for up to an hour about all things, let's call it self-promotional or personal branding oriented, or their take on what personal branding is, or I ask them questions about their personal brand because I find it incredibly interesting what they're doing. But the whole point is I'll be demonstrating with you and my guest the essence of what personal branding is, because I'll be honest with you, we've all been kind of bastardized about personal branding because people think it's kind of synonymous with Instagram influencers. No, it's much more than that. And it can be much more subtle, especially if you're an active professional. But we're going to be talking more about that with my guest. So I'm going to shut up and we're going to go straight into that podcast episode by doing this. Okay, let's bring on my special guest right now. The lovely, the talented, the I don't even know her yet, Tracy Hazzard, but I'm already inspired by her. Why? Because she has really taken the bull by the horns when it comes to who she is, what she does, and how she does it, to create a place in the marketplace, if you will, for her, and also given you a very easy handle to get a handle on who she is, which, if you're asking me, that's the essence of personal branding. So Tracy Hazzard, first of all, welcome to the Nonfiction Brand podcast. But Tracy, I want you to give about 30 seconds on what your handle is when it comes to who you are in the professional world, if you will, and also why you selected that specific niche to own as your own. Take it away, Tracy.
Thanks, DP. I think that my special niche in the, I'm going to call it thought leadership expert space, and specifically in that content marketing space, is the fact that I figure out what really works. Like, I don't want to know what's trendy. I want to know what's actually going to work, what's going to convert, what's going to change in a business, what's going to work again and again and again. And this has been a theme through my entire career so far, is I figure out what people want to buy again and again and again, which means that it's working for them. And that's what I'm always looking for. That's what I bring to the table. And that's why people come to me, because when I give my view on something, or when I'm suggesting something or recommending something, it's because I believe it will really work for them.
Well, and I think that's so very important because there's a lot of people out there selling a lot of different things, ranging from ClickFunnels, SEO, blah, 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 to this is what you really need to be doing this week. Right now, a lot of people are freaking out, and rightly so, about the way that AI is going to be changing things a whole lot faster than I thought it could, especially for people like me who are writing professionals. First time I went on Chat GPT and typed in a few facts and said, write a 500-word essay about this, and it came back with something that was not only readable, but actually fairly well written, I started to freak out. And then I remembered something. Oh yeah, I'm inoculating myself against AI and our AI overlords because I'm putting myself out there in ways that are actually leaning into my humanity. But here's the key, and this is where I want to tie it to what you do. As a human, I've only got so much time. I've only got so much bandwidth. I've only got so many dollars that I can possibly spend. And it seems like everybody and their mother are out there trying to sell me some type of snake oil that's guaranteed to get me into six figures within 30 days. I don't sense that's what you're about. And based on what you just said, you're probably the actual antithesis of that, which is, one, you understand the bandwidth issues everybody faces and the dollar issues everybody faces. And therefore, I'm going to guess that you're much more of a let's work smarter and, use your budget effectively using proven techniques. Am I right about this?
Yeah, I'm your get stuff girl. Get it done girl, right? Like, I don't want to sell you how to learn how to do something, how to figure out your way. And I don't want to sell you a more coaching and more of those other programs. I want to help you get this thing moving, get it working for you. But I also want to sell it to you at the right time. Because if it's not the right time for you, it's not going to work. So I don't want things where you cannot be successful with that. And that's really what it takes. I think there's a lot of it. Like when I started podcasting and when we started in that, there were a lot of people out there selling courses because it was a lot harder to podcast back in 2014. A lot harder. And so, but it was what people weren't telling you. That's the part that you need, the missing piece, the thing about how hard it's going to be, the sugarcoating things. Like, I didn't want that. I wanted someone to say, this is really what it's going to take to do it. And so really early on, I figured out what those gaps and those holes were, developed in my system, my process. And then people would go, Tracy, what are you doing? Why is this working? And I'd be like, I'm doing this, and this, and this. And then they'd be like, oh, I don't want to do that. Here's my credit card. Would you do it for me? Like, that's how our business started. It's just one of those things where it's not the easy path, but the path to getting stuff to work for you is so essential. And you cannot get caught up in this thing, the one thing that excites you, that they're selling into you. Like they're preying on that. They're manipulating that. And unless your eyes are open to that, you're not going to understand how I make this work. And you'll be in yet another failed course, another failed program, another failed, book that you didn't read, like, whatever it is.
Yeah, well, and I totally get that because right now you're a podcaster, I'm a podcaster. We both believe in podcasting, and a recommendation we give undoubtedly to a lot of people is, you should check out a podcast because there's no better way to demonstrate who you are, what you do, and how you do it. The way you think, the way you talk, your sense of humor, everything short of the way you smell via podcast. However, what you and I know is that podcasting takes a significant amount of time and also talent.
Well, and that's why I'm actually really excited about ChatGPT and AI. So we just did a live stream about that a week ago with our coaching, because we give coaching topics and calls to our entire client base live every week. And we do it because we want to make sure that they're up on what's going on so they can be knowledgeable about it, see what we're experimenting with. But I'm not ready to recommend it yet. Right. And so I will talk to them about what I'm finding, what I'm doing, but I will say this is not ready for prime time yet. And what we found with the Chat GPT model is, yes, there's some very cool, really exciting things going on in terms of how good it is and what it puts out. But the reality is it's going to create thought followership and not thought leadership. We have to add our special spice. And what you did, DP, was when you went into Chat GPT, giving it that topic, giving it the information, screening what you were asking it for and asking the questions in the right way is where the value is going to lie. That's where your thought, your creative view, your perspective on the world, you're knowing what you need it to write is the part that no one can phone in, no AI can do. It can only aggregate what's out there. So those of us that can think are going to be in prime to make a lot of money.
Well, and I think there's a whole new growth industry out there for people who are professional AI prompt writers, meaning seriously, if you write the prompt the right way, you can get incredible output, but garbage in, garbage out. And, I'm kind of reminded of a best-selling author out there, and I don't want to pick on him, but, he was a former advertising copywriter, so I share some of his DNA, and I feel comfortable ripping on someone who makes way more money than I do, James Patterson. He comes out with a new.
I didn't realize it came out of advertising.
Oh yeah. I'm an old copywriter. Accent on the old part. But James Patterson he comes out with a book and it's an instant bestseller. And if you'll notice on a lot of all of his books now, it's James Patterson in 50-point type over the title, with down at the bottom in 20-point type with Joe Blow, who actually wrote the book. And here's the thing, James Patterson, and again, this is my humble opinion, please, we live in a litigious society. This is neither slander nor libel. It's my opinion based on what I view as a human being. James Patterson is using AI in the form of another carbon-based human being to do the typing of the book he's already got in his head, the plot line, the characters, the locations, all of these things James Patterson has all ready to go. He brings in his collaborator, gives him a download of a set of prompts, and then says, go write the book, and then I'll review it, and we'll edit from there. And this is not to say the book is not James Patterson's. It's that James Patterson is an actual working model of how people are going to be working with AI in the not too distant future.
Well, you come out
It's
of a
amazing.
ghostwriting world, right? And I come out of a ghost designing world. Like that's where I came from. So I would design products for Martha Stewart, for big brands like Costco and Walmart and things like that. So I understood this model of like staying behind the scenes and letting the brand do the marketing and the heavy lifting, but you still had to have the brilliance of the structure of what this thing was going to be, how it was going to serve the world. And that cannot be done by the AI. That has to be done by the guide. So you can have a brand marketing arm, or you can have a brand that's coming up with the thought leadership.
Right. And the key is the thought leadership. I mean, if you can be a thought leader instead of a simply what you referred to earlier as a thought follower, that is key. And the thing is, what people need to understand is no one expects you to be a thought leader in something you don't know about. What do you know? Not just a little bit, but your entire career is based on it or whatever else. You can be a thought leader in whatever that niche happens to be and be incredibly effective. Do you have any specific clients that you deal with that are good examples of thought leaders in areas that people would not necessarily think of when they think of thought leaders?
So I have thought leaders in like millennial home buying. Like that just seems like buying a first home. David Sidoni, he's a brilliant podcaster, How to Buy a Home. Brilliant thought leader in tapping into that millennial mindset and getting them to shift it and understand it, and then giving them the tools, the tactics, the resources, and everything that they need to make a decision for themselves if buying a home is right for them. Like that's such a niche area and such a great model in terms of giving the tools that are necessary to make choices on your own. I have thought leaders who are big names you've probably heard of, like, people who've been out there in I'm going to call them the OGs in the entrepreneur space, who like wrote those early books and went on those big speaking tours, and they aren't making it because their information is left on that stage and it never got reduced to the written word. It never got into Google. Their videos never got cataloged, that never made it into a digital searchable world. So today's young generation can't find them.
Yeah.
So they think they're famous still and they're riding on those laurels, but their name recognition, their theories are still being used and built on by those social media influencers you were referring to, because they're not thought leaders, right? They're building it on stuff that they've heard, they read, or whatever. But their ideas are getting lost in the shuffle. They're getting lost in the shuffle because they didn't understand how to play the bot game. The search engine is a bot. And I always say that if you do not have your digital authority in place, then your expert authority, your brand authority is never going to come through.
Well, you're the tree that falls in the forest and no one's watching or hears it, so you don't make a sound, and I'm as big at fault of that as anybody, because I am a content creator who is not good about content broadcasting in a lot of ways. I mean, I can point to my books and my podcast and stuff like that, but I'm not even optimizing those as far as they should be optimized. Why? Because I'm
A lot of work.
it's a lot of work, and I don't have a lot of time, interest, bandwidth, energy, you name it. So the
That's why I
question,
have a business, DP.
yeah,
So,
well,
like,
exactly.
because you're not alone, right? Like, that's why there's so many people. So, I mean, it's why I have a podcast production company called Podetize, which is, the binge factor is the podcast that goes with that. But Podetize was born because people are saying, I don't want to do what you did. So I don't want to do all that work. Can you just do it for me? And that's literally, we went from 10 to over 1,200 clients from that model because people don't want to do all that optimization. They don't want to do that work. And the hardest part is like, yes, you can learn it and I am happy to teach it to you. But the reality is you can't keep up either. Who can keep up with the tagging changes on YouTube and the changes to how SEO is working on Google today, right? It's all too much for you to be an expert in. That's what the AI is going to be for. That's what resources and service bureaus and marketing agencies that you work with, that's the expertise that you need to buy and pay for, the deep knowledge so that you keep shifting and staying on top of the algorithms.
Yeah, and that's a constant battle. And that's why you need warriors on your side if you want that warrior yourself. And let's face it, if you're out there actually being the thought leader, that requires a lot of time to actually, build the database to generate those thoughts, if you will. When it comes down to best times to post or how to tag or any of that stuff, you don't need to be a genius to do it, but you need someone diligent, disciplined, and very, very skilled at it. And that sounds what you guys are about.
Yeah, it's all what I'm about. I mean, this is the thing that I found over time is almost everything follows these 3 rules. You have to be consistent and constant in it. If you were writing a column back in the old days of newspapers, you had to post it every week on Sunday or whatever that was. If you weren't consistent and constant, you didn't keep up your audience. You didn't keep up your brand. You didn't keep up your followers. It didn't happen. You lost your readers. So consistent and constant is the one principle that is first and foremost. The second principle is that people aren't you. So even though your preferred method might be talking here on the podcast, they might be video watchers, they might be readers. And having everything in multi-format, multimedia, today is so easy. It used to be so hard. But today it's easy to do that. And so really at the end of the day, you're missing out on a market. You're missing out on an opportunity to help someone learn about you, learn about your ideas, and gain some knowledge for themselves if you aren't publishing it out in all the different media types. And then the third thing that I really think is at the end of the day, I can't make you record. I tell this to my clients all the time. I can't make you do these things. I can't give you ideas for your show. You have to do that. That is the one part I refuse to do for you because you know your business. You know your expertise. You know your thought leadership. You just need to do it and take the time to do that part. So that's the part. You have to live in that brand authority.
Well, I want to remind longtime listeners to this podcast and also people who might have picked up my book that there's a concept that I learned from Jay Baer, and he's a brilliant guy. I don't know if he invented it or if he's just one of the many people who use it very effectively, but I gave it a name so that it's easier to handle, or give it a handle so that people can understand exactly what I'm talking about. And I call it the content cascade. Now, in Jay's case, what he does is he does a video and he waxes eloquent for whatever amount of time he's waxing eloquent. And that becomes the master that then cascades down into multiple different channels and multiple different forms. So his live video, which typically isn't fully scripted, it may have copy points, but that he riffs on, but he'll take that transcript and then turn it into a cleaned up, edited blog post that then is sliced and diced into countless different snippets and other things. That live interview, the audio is then taken and that's sliced and diced and all that other stuff. So if you think about it, Jay Baer is this executive chef that is creating the recipe and the menu, but he's got a whole sous chef class of people working with him to get this stuff done and out there. And that is key, especially for people who are genuinely thought leaders, not thought regurgitators.
There's a big difference there,
Oh
absolutely,
my
and
God.
that's what in this day and age, it's like, if you can start with the long form. I know that there's short form videos really popular. I think we're gonna get tired of it. That's my prediction on this. I already hearing that from even the younger generation, that they're a little sick of the short form videos. So I think it's gonna happen faster than you think, and so the long form is still gonna be really valuable. But if you go from video to audio to blog to social share, and you do them all optimized for each one of those media types, that sounds like an overwhelming lot of work. But the reality is that the power of what you did of creating that one piece of content was actually the hard part. The other stuff you can sub out, you can take a course, you can figure this out, you can put into a system. Hopefully one day you can just get the AI to do it for you, right? And just getting through all of that model. But that's what my business was built on, this idea of taking it from video all the way to social share, doing it in 7 to 10 days and doing it at a low cost that makes it cost effective for you to say, my time isn't worth that.
Yeah.
That this is my time is so valuable that that is a waste of my time to do all of that.
Well, color me intrigued, Tracy. You say you have this menu of services or perhaps packages of services. Can you give me, let's just say one were I don't know, a podcaster of several years who only has time to get the podcast done, can maybe slap it into Descript or, Otter, whatever it's called, Otter AI, OAO, Otter
Yeah,
IO.
one of those transcription things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can get it transcribed, but let's just say one were to provide someone on your team that I don't know, that box of proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, and all that stuff.
A good menu.
What can you make out of that? And like, if I were to ask you, could you put a dollar number on that? Like, is it a monthly fee? What?
So we decided early on that we didn't believe in monthly subscriptions because it put people in this mindset of like pressure of like, I'm not using this, and people were hating that model of like feeling like they left stuff on the table. So we went to the yoga sessions model. So like it's based on the number of episodes you want to produce, because some people produce 25 in a month and some people produce 2. So we wanted to give them a range to do that. So we do this in packages, and when you buy a larger package, you get a lower price. That's just how we do it per episode. So as low as $199 an episode, you can do video, audio, blog, and social share, and you'll get 5 different types of social share graphics and clips and other things like that. But you can have up to 7 total because you'll get different sizes as well. So it's like pretty broad. And then there are technology pieces that we have as well, which, when you get to a size of show like you have with so many hundreds of episodes, it gets really hard for someone new to you to follow you because they have a hard time filtering through all this stuff. So they get frustrated and they don't binge on everything. They just listen to your most current episodes. And then they're missing out on some great information they might want to get back to. So we created all these technological tools in the way that we host podcasts and syndicate them, playlist them, showcast them, so that you can do like landing pages with them, create support for your book from your podcast episodes that might be the right ones, things like that. So we try to add the technology pieces and the innovation of that with the production pieces so that they go hand in hand together to do what you want it to do for your business and your brand.
Wow, that sounds very interesting. Because again, who's got all the time to do all this stuff? Nobody does, except for the people who appear to are like ducks floating across the pond. They seem
There's a
serene.
lot of action under there.
There's a lot of feet going. Like you pick whoever your flavor of the week is, or not even the week, but whoever you like to follow. Like I'm going to pull out Sailing La Vagabond on YouTube. This beautiful couple from Australia sail the world and do all this stuff, and it just looks magical and wonderful. Well, I know how much work that takes, and oh my Lord, they work their butts off for everything they get. So the question is, for someone who doesn't make that their 100% full-time day job, how can you still get the benefit that's afforded by always on 24/7 social, the social universe? It gives you access to everybody on the face of the globe who's on social and who
Yeah.
isn't. Anybody who buys certainly is on social. And if you aren't playing in that space, I'm going to say you're missing out. But at the same time, I'll also say you don't have to do everything. But
No, and I so
yeah,
agree.
go
Like
ahead.
I did a big a coaching call early in the year or late in the year about choosing one social media platform to start with. Because you don't have your messaging right, you don't have your systems right, you have a lot to dial in at once. So when you do one thing really well and you figure it out, like you're doing the podcast and you figured it out, you've got a model for this. When you're ready to move and float it into the next thing, there's some new learning, some new systems, some new tweaks, some new things that need to happen there, but it's not a reinvention of everything. And when you're going out and, shotgunning everywhere at once, you can't figure out what's working and what's not. You don't have the opportunity. It's a true design of experiment out there, and you've got to make sure that you dial that in before you continue and move forward into the next phase.
Yeah, as listeners to this podcast will recall the concept of a style stage. What is your style and what stage is best for you? That certainly aligns with your pick one and do it really well, at least to get started. One of the metaphors I use all the time, a little too much, is the idea of going to the gym. If you go to the gym and pick up a barbell weighing 500 pounds, you'll kill yourself and you'll never go back. But if you go to the gym, you walk in, you grab that 5-pound weight, do 5 repetitions, walk out and say, I feel good about myself. I actually got it done. Maybe not to the Olympic level, but I got it done. Well, guess what? You come back the next day and you pick up that 5-pound weight and go, you know what? I'm going to grab the 10-pound. Maybe a little bit more weight. And I'm going to keep going and I'm going to keep going and getting stronger and stronger every day by showing up and doing. It can be very difficult. And as I alluded to at the beginning of this, this is episode 200 and I don't know, 15 or something like that, weekly, with the exception of a couple of hiatuses. And I'll be honest with you, I'm a little tired. I'm a little bit curious about, has this seen its highlight? Is
I
its
think
best
that's something
days?
that happens to every podcaster. Like I try to get my clients and people that I counsel on podcasting is like try to get a look at every 100 or so. Because if you don't make it to 100, you really haven't given it enough effort. And I say that with all love, that like there's so many people quit early and just haven't given enough time. But if you've given it 1 to 2 years, and that's 100 episodes easily, it's like you've given it enough effort to say, is this really working for me? Have I seen the benefits? Have I tried a bunch of different things? So you've certainly given it that. But then you hit 200 and you're now questioning, is like, why isn't it working? What's going on here? Where's that thing? Is before you give it up, get a professional audit, because you've now invested quite a few years, and you've now invested and you actually have more value in it than you think. And I think sometimes just getting this more professional audit view, this idea of being able to look at the value of what you've created and maybe the value of opportunity you haven't taken advantage of yet, might either re-engage your passion for it or at least maximize the value of what you already did. And that's so much like, I was referring to some of these OGs in the speaking space and the writing about entrepreneurship space. And, one of them had 800 videos. They were behind a membership gate, 800 videos, and they were, under 10-minute videos, but 800 of them. And I said, you know what? I think my best recommendation to you is to put them out on YouTube, blog them on your website, and create this fantastic search and dynamic, and then invite everybody into your mastermind, because that's what he had as a part of it, and just invite them in, but open it up out of the membership gate. Boy, did he not want to let that go.
Yeah.
But the value of moving that out into the public domain was going to 10x his brand recognition in a new generation. and is
Yeah.
missing the value and opportunity there. So sometimes you're not going to want to do what they recommend or what someone recommends, but it's a good idea to get that expertise. One of the things that I always hate is this idea that you're 3 feet from gold. And my frustration about this 3 feet from gold model is not that you were 3 feet from gold, is that that guy never got an expert to go and check this out and give him some advice. And it's not about persevering to me. It's about, I'm so sorry about my camera, everyone. If you're watching this on video, my lens cap keeps like dropping off. My special lens, it's glued on, obviously, and it's
Oh
not
my gosh.
sticking. It's the funniest thing. But the idea of 3 feet from gold is that you're supposed to persevere, right? And you're supposed to just keep going. But the guy gives up, never asks for an expert, and someone else comes in, finds out they were 3 feet from the vein.
Right.
You should get an expert in before you abandon something. And it is okay to abandon something. I absolutely feel that, but you should get an expert in to evaluate you. Evaluate what you've built, evaluate what you've done. I mean, it's just so important to have a look at it from an outside perspective, because when we're in our bubble of doing it, it is overwhelming. It is exhausting. So I'm on 2,600 episodes and interviews that I've done in the past 8 years. So 2,600 to 3,000, somewhere in there. I stopped counting last year, but somewhere around there. And I'm not tired of it, but I was tired of my topics. I did 650 episodes on 3D printing. If you asked me to do the 3D printing one again, I'd probably scream. So like, my partner and husband wanted to do one more, and I'm like, it's all on you. I can't do it again. But I can get on a mic with you, and I'm happy to do that, DP.
Yeah. So what does this assessment look like? I mean, walk us through that. Just come up with a scenario.
So reality is that we're recording this before it, but I have built a tool for this that's going to be coming out in about a month. And so it may be by the time this airs on the podcast side, even though we're live streaming this right now, but in about a month, it's going to come out. So I built a tool that will do it in an automated way. It's kind of like giving you a credit score for your podcast. So it's giving you a score on 37 points of data, taking a look at the value creation that your residual value over time from the show. So obviously, the more consistent you are, the more episodes you have, the more playthrough, the more all of those things. And it has less to do with downloads than it does with that overall residual brand value you've created, because that's really your worthiness for me to be a guest on your show, or your worthiness for me to advertise on your show, or your worthiness for me to give it the time to listen to your show and follow you, right? That's what it's assessing. So, but we've been doing this manually in an actual live audit manner, where we go through all the points of data and we look through all these things and we check all the things on your show. And a lot of it is adjustment in the digital footprint of your show to making sure that, because the search engine that is Apple and Spotify and all of those places is so bad that it's really hard to rise above the noise. So we want to fix some of those things, easy fixes. And then all of a sudden your show starts taking off and you're like, what's going on here? Then we want to capture that residual value back into it. So anyone who doesn't have a website and isn't putting their podcast back on their website is losing out. That's for sure. Like right there, that's a big no-no. You're losing out on your own value, because most importantly, if I'm building a personal brand, I don't want to be out only on Apple and only on Spotify amongst all those other people who have more marketing dollars to spend than me. I want someone to come back to my website where the only thing you can find is me. And that's the residual value that you create over time. So we want to pull it back to that. So we just do that right now. You can still do it. You can go to Podetize and you can get an audit for your show. And my team is happy to do it. We don't charge anyone, because if podcasts as an industry don't get better, none of our shows are going to be valued in the future. So it is our mission and our job to make sure that this knowledge that we have, that we've seen working again and again for all of our clients, works for everyone in the industry.
Yeah, well, so many things are rolling through my head, because the guy who had all that hidden warehouse of great thought leadership and demonstration of the quality of his or her thinking, all that stuff. The old model was lock it in a vault and let people have a glimpse in the vault only if they pay to come in the vault. That's that's been the model that American enterprise has been working on for, hundreds of years. But this new model, which is put it out there, whether you call it freemium or something like that, get it out there so people see it and then get to know you, get to like you, get to trust you, the Bob Berg triumvirate of know, like, and trust. That is so important. And that's, one of the reasons I do a podcast is because this is the best way for you to get to know, like, and trust me, and then discover over time, oh, yeah, no, he's got something going on. And
So
then
I think it's actually a flip of that, DP. I think it's trust like no nowadays. And the reason I think that is because we're going to go to the platform, the channel. I learned this when I was working on the mass market. Costco fans are Costco fans. They will buy anything that Costco puts in that store because they trust Costco. Same thing with Amazon. Same thing with our Spotify, our whatever it is that we love in terms of a platform for consumption. We trust YouTube. We trust that model and we go there first because who's ever on there has put in the work, put in the time, syndicated themselves, done something right. So I can trust that. And then I listen, I binge, I get to know you. I want to know you because I start liking you. So that's where I think that we miss the point. We think that I got to get you to trust me first when I really just have to be in the right place where you already trust.
Oh man, you're triggering so many thoughts in my head because that makes total sense. And anyone who listens to the Nonfiction Brand podcast knows that I'm a big proponent of branding in many different ways and many different reasons. I don't believe in branding to make you pay for something you don't want or buy something you don't need. I'm all about branding when it comes to allow you to more easily find the thing with which you will be so happy and satisfied, and that you will have a lifetime relationship with them or with that product because of it. For example, you mentioned Costco. Big fan of Costco. Longtime listeners know I'm an Apple fanatic. Apple doesn't do everything right all the time, but it does more right than it does wrong. And I am always delighted by the magic that it creates. I don't have to look under the hood.
Yeah.
Thank you, Apple.
Other people. So true.
Yeah, other people, mileage varies. Engineers, they love messing with every little dingle thing they can deal with. Great. You can do that with other brands. But Apple, you don't have to. And that's why Apple gets my dollars when it comes to technology like that. But that idea of trust, several years ago, probably, oh gosh, it must be more like 15 years ago. I think, who was it? He was a creative director for Saatchi & Saatchi, I think, big international agency. He came out with a book called Love Marks, which was about brands that achieve something more than a brand. They become a true love mark. And Apple was one of the examples he used in that book. But what you're talking about is trust brands. And that's where my brain is going with it. Brands that you trust to the level where you say things like, oh, they came out with this, or, oh, they haven't come out with it yet. I'll wait to get their version of it because I trust them. And again, Apple, trust is actually one of their key performance indicators, or, their pillars when it comes to their products. The idea that, no, you can't get user information from apps in the iPhone App Store the way you can in Android and stuff like that. That makes people buy. Why? Because they trust. And that, oh my gosh, that's going to be even more and more important moving forward.
It is, because in this sort of AI driven world and everything's coming up with it. Look, I hear this again and again about what Google's doing, how Google's afraid of Chat GPT and everything. But Google has a significant point. We don't get mad at Google today when they give us the wrong answers because we know they're just pushing up search results, right? They're pushing up results. We don't get mad at them. But if it gave us one answer, and because that's what the chat spits out, it gives us one answer and says, this is the thing you need, and it's not right, we are going to hold that brand responsible. So this is why we cannot mess this up. We've got to get it right. And we've got to make sure that we're keeping that curation of who we are, who our brand is, and we're putting it on trustworthy platforms at the end of the day, because that's what sells. People used to ask me, Tracy, why don't you make your own products, sell them on Amazon? Why are you working for some other brand hidden, as a ghost designer? Why are you doing this? I was like, because I can make multi-millions of dollars over the course of years with no risk, because they already have the brand power. They already have the trust. They already have the relationship with Costco, with Walmart, with Target. I don't have to build all of that, and I don't have to fund all of that to make sure this product goes. I just get to design it and take my cut off the top. Like it's a no-brainer for me to stay in my wheelhouse.
Well, but that's all predicated on knowing something about you, your person, your personal brand, which is, I don't need to be the lead singer of the band. I'll write all the songs and get all the
That's right.
publishing. Everybody points to the Doors, Jim Morrison. He didn't get all the publishing. What was his name?
No.
Ray Manzarek, the keyboard player, who, he made the bank because he wrote the songs, and he let the Lizard King go out front and burn himself out and die 40 years in advance of, anybody else in that age cohort. If you want to be the lead singer of the band, admit it, know it, own it, and be it. But if you don't, guess what? That doesn't mean you don't need to brand yourself, because people need to know who you are, what you do, and how you do it. And you need to demonstrate that. Again, demonstration is so important. And what you're talking about with all that locked in demonstration that might be in someone's 500 podcast episodes or 850 videos, these are the things you're talking about, which is take that demonstration, that big pile of brand demonstration, and get it out there so you can meet new people, let them meet you, get them to trust you. Why? Because they know who you are, what you do, and how you do it. They respect you. They prefer you. They may evangelize for you and become part of your unpaid sales force. You can do that if you unlock the value of it. This is such a good
example that you're pointing out. I was just watching that Elvis movie with Tom Hanks as the I forgot what his name was.
Colonel Tom Parker.
Colonel Tom Parker. And so I was just watching that, and then of course Lisa Marie dies. And so, as you watch this, it's like, I think the real story, and the story I want to hear, is when he died and Priscilla took over, and then they fought him in court to really get that brand back to the power of the legacy that he had created. And now Lisa Marie's children have that legacy preserved, and it's in a corporation, and they can't mess it up. And, no matter if some of the kids had drug problems, like, nothing's going to go wrong with it because it's all protected in there. Somebody did that legacy right there and really took the power of what Elvis had created.
Well, and whoever did that for them now has a demonstration piece that can write their ticket the rest of their lives, so they can build this monster machine that is absolutely delivering the value that people want, because they've demonstrated they've done it before, they can do it again. Now, let me ask you this question, because social media is constantly moving, it's constantly migrating and, changing, evolving. How do you make sure that you're not just kind of one of those people that, I got a hammer, therefore everything's a nail? Because we've all seen it. I'm convincing people who can't talk they should have a podcast. Nah, not necessarily a good idea all the time. How do you make sure that you retain your value to these people and offer them up the stuff that not only could work for them, but will work for them?
So, we have kind of an interesting business model in that we don't actually try to seek someone who's brand new to who's thinking about starting a podcast. Of course, we help people set up their podcast if they come to us, but they only come to us from referrals. And the reason why we don't market to someone who's thinking about podcasting is because they don't know what they're getting into yet. So our business model is around someone who's already started their show, is starting to find out how difficult it is. And we are going to be this great, deep resource of any question they need answered. We're going to give an answer that they have not heard before. And it's not because it's to be contrary about it. It's a different answer because this answer comes from a pattern of experience of what worked again and again instead of what I want to sell you. So if you don't need me now, that's okay. I'm still going to have an answer for you because I want to be that resource that makes sure that you succeed. Because then when you hit over 100 episodes or you hit to this next phase or you get a sponsor, you're going to be like, Tracy, I need your help now and I can pay for your services and I've got everything I need, or I'm ready to join your platform and use ad mixing and, whatever it is, they know I gave them value before they were ready yet. And I helped get them ready. And that is my essential value is I think today in the social media world, we're chasing trends. We're like, oh, it's the year of the rabbit. And let me come out and just do a whole Chinese New Year social media post because that's what it's about. And I say, I've got a coaching call this week. And while I will acknowledge that that's what it is, my coaching call is not about that. My coaching call is about showing up for you and making sure that you've got the essential piece that's next for you so that, maybe like rabbits, you could multiply your business. Like I might be able to create a tie-in like that, but I'm not going to do something artificial.
Thank you. Thank you. Not everything has to be themed.
No,
in fact,
please.
the best stuff never is.
Yeah.
Wow. So talk about your podcast, The Binge Factor. What is the binge factor and why should people binge The Binge Factor?
So this is an interesting phenomenon that us podcasters discover in a different way. Look, we binge watch Netflix, we binge watch TV shows, we binge watch things. So we know what that means to do that. But the phenomena of binge listening to a podcast is crazy because, when I had my first show on 3D printing and someone reached out to me and says, I know you have 100 episodes. I'm 50 episodes in. I've been listening all weekend and I have a question and I want to make sure when I get to 101, you answer that for me. But that's crazy. Like it just took me off guard when I found out people were like trying to learn something and wanted to consume it in a short period of time. And so that's what binging is about. And not every show is conducive to that. There are a lot of shows that don't work in that binge model. We're not going to binge something that is timely and in news and information today. We may not binge every interview show possible, but we might if they're tightly themed interview shows. Right? If we're really talking about the same type of topic, I want new perspectives and new viewpoints. So that's the way you get an interview show bingeable. But the other thing is that what we've learned as podcasters, and you really know this, DP, because every time I listen to one of your episodes, I get this sense that you're bringing somebody who's got a whole brand new story to share, something new perspective on the world, right? And you're anchoring that to your topic area, to the idea of nonfiction branding, to the idea of branding, personal branding in general. But you're curating that and making sure that they're not saying the same thing they've said on 12 other shows. Because otherwise, why listen to Tracy if she says the same thing on every single podcast she's ever guested on? It's a waste of their time to listen to that episode. So pulling out that original content is a reason for someone to binge on your show. But when they binge on you, this is the key. They come back to you and they buy faster, because they already trust you, like you, and want to know you. And they really already are indoctrinated into your process. So they take action better. They become better clients. They are better at consuming whatever it is and putting that into action. So you have higher success rates.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of the things that has been a real boon for me when it comes to doing a podcast and stuff like that is that I like to serve tea hot. And hot tea is not to everybody's taste. If it's not, fine, good. You go elsewhere. I don't have to deal with someone who's not going to be satisfied, and we're all happy. The worst thing in the world is trying to please someone who can't be pleased because they don't really mesh with you. And how much time can be wasted doing that? Way, way too much. And don't get me started about earlier today. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Anyway, so Tracy, if I were someone who wanted to learn more about what you and your group does, how can I get started, or how can I contact you? Where do you like to hang out? Obviously, I'm going to check out the podcast, the Binge Factor podcast, but how else could I engage with you?
So I'm on LinkedIn. I'm actually, we live stream there every single week. We also live stream on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram as well. But absolutely, the bingefactor.com will get you to me. But there's a couple of things that you might want to do. Check out Podetize, and Podetize is our company. And that is also has a podcast called Feed Your Brand. So if you want to hear past episodes, if you want to hear my thoughts on AI, if you want to hear any of those things, you can go check out the podcast on Feed Your Brand and hear what's happening live in our coaching calls, and then join some of the coaching calls going forward, because you can, because we live stream it. I want to make this simple for you. So if you find me on LinkedIn, and it's Hazard with 2 Z's, and that's, like the Dukes of, and my partner and husband, who's, he's the co-founder of the business with me, Tom Hazard, you could friend him too, and you'll find everything. I mean, we put it all out there for you.
Well, and obviously, it's been such a pleasure having you on, because you have demonstrated everything about you that could be winning, charming, interesting, and engaging for everybody who's listening. And why is that? Because you're putting yourself out there, Tracy Hazzard, your personal brand, which is wrapped up in everything we've talked about over this past, 45 minutes. And you have gone a huge step forward toward getting people to trust, like, and know you, because you have demonstrated all of those flavors that make up the ice cream that is you. Oh boy, that's a tortured metaphor. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I love being ice cream. That sounds so good.
Yeah. Well, anyway, again, I want to invite people in the listening audience to hook up with you. So the best, would you say number one is join a LinkedIn coaching call?
Yeah, join a live stream. Find me on LinkedIn, and you could consume the podcast that way. You can link to everything. You'll be able to find us.
All right, Nonfiction Branders, your task of the day is to go on LinkedIn right now and look up Tracy Hazzard, Hazzard. Or for our friends out there in the British English audience, it's Hazzard. Yes, I'm making fun of you. Anyway, that's it for the Nonfiction Brand podcast. I want to thank you again for coming on, Tracy. I really am intrigued by everything you're doing with the Binge Factor and also your company Podetize. I might have to check out some of that, because I sense that I probably have this entire vault of value just sitting there that should be released out into the wild to benefit not only everybody out there, but also perhaps myself.
Right.
I'm going to have to think about that. But anyway, by all means, check out Tracy wherever she lives online. Start at LinkedIn, as we discussed. But other than that, I want to thank you and say, of course, to my podcast listeners, thank you so much for listening to the Nonfiction Brand podcast. Remember to like, subscribe, and do all that crap that you have to do when you listen to a podcast, especially review it, because that does help other people find the podcast. I'm DP Knudten, your host, and she is
Tracy Hazzard.
And I'll be talking at you again next time. Bye-bye. Okay, live stream viewers, that's the end of the podcast, but I also have to end this live stream, and I want to thank you for watching this on LinkedIn Live and YouTube Live. By all means, everything you heard about Tracy, check her out, because I think you can tell she's a really kind, sincere, honest, dare I say trustworthy individual, well worth your time. So check them out. And also, whenever you hear this sound, oh yeah, baby, you know it's time for IMNSHOW, in my not so humble opinion. The show with opinions, not only my own, but also my guests. That's it for this week. I'll be talking to you next time. Bye-bye.